Lisa for really to tell you how to be able to sprout and serve food on the table. And also, I'm going to have Elise right now, Coleman, from the West Boston Municipal Water District, and she will talk about how to conserve some water. But before we go there, because I want to let her talk to you, I would like I brought something special today. Look, this is like gold. You know what is more important than gold is water. And this is a 55 gallons of water can be integrated inside of it. With just a little capsule like that, it can conserve for 5 years. Then you can have this in your apartment, anywhere you can be. It doesn't take too much space. There is a pump you can, it costs about $75. Can you provide for 55 gallons of water? Then it's something to think about. That this is what was my goodies today to show you, and it's an important thing to have at home. Now again, I'm going to let you talk. Elise, go and let's talk about water and see what's happening today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have a little bit of a sore throat, so I'll talk for a few minutes, and I'm really happy also to answer any questions that you might have about the water situation here in Southern California. I'm from West Basin Municipal Water District, and I believe we met Lisa down at our ocean water desalination demonstration facility in Redondo Beach. And she lives in Topanga, which is part of the West Basin service area. This area up here is serviced by as you know, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. I am not a representative of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power.
I'll holster my gun.
If you came here to talk, nothing that I say is representative of the Department of Water and Power. I would say that, you know, I do represent my agency. My agency is a water wholesale agency. We're kind of an intermediate water wholesale agency, and I'm not going to go too far down this road, but just to give you an idea of how the water system is set up. Down here we have the Metropolitan Water District service area. How many of you have heard of the Metropolitan Water District? Okay, so the Metropolitan Water District is one of the largest water wholesalers in the world, I believe, and they help bring water down from the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta area and the Colorado River system here, and then 26 different member agencies purchase water from the Metropolitan Water District. My agency is one of those 26. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is one of those 26. LADWP also, as you know, has an additional water supply, which comes from the Owens Valley down the LA Aqueduct, which just turned 100 years last year, as many of you may know. And I'll touch on a little bit on infrastructure, and as you can probably imagine, a 100-year-old system, while an amazing engineering marvel of the world, and the distribution system that distributes water to your communities here. There's been a lot of news about water main breaks and that type of thing, and that's all due to the fact that the system is aging, and that's happening all across California as well as across the country. So, as I've now completely gone off track, you know, one of the things that we at West Basin talk to people a lot about is the value of water. And you know, water is probably one of the most taken for granted utilities that we have. It's one of those things that you turn on your faucet, most people do not think about where that water is coming from, how much energy it took to get to their house, and what happens to it once it goes down your drain and to the treatment facilities. So, as I've just explained here, the complex system that brings water to Southern California kind of gives us the impression that we have a self-sustaining support system that can service, you know, the 18 million people in Southern California. get up in the morning and you walk outside and you see the green grass and the palm trees and everything, it's kind of gives you the illusion that we have the water to really sustain that. And as we will continue to move into the future, I think we're going to need to find new ways to define what it means to have a beautiful landscape in Southern California.
I just told Elise a statistic. I had a column in the Topanga Journal where I live, and if in the United States for 1 year, right, 365 days, people didn't water non-indigenous landscape and all the energy that goes into that landscape in terms of the power for the lighting and the manpower for taking care of it, manicuring it, and the money for the gasoline to run everything, we could feed the world over for 26 years just based on the non-indigenous, and that's not even edible, that's just non-indigenous, like aesthetic landscaping in the United States alone. And just think about the water in our toilets that we flush that's drinkable, that's in our tanks.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, I think that, when you hear a statistic like that, you think, everybody should be taking out all of their lawn. And we don't really advocate for people to remove their entire front lawn. It's just a reduction, really. Even moving it back from the sidewalk so that when you water your lawn, that you're watering the actual lawn and not the sidewalk. I'm not accusing any of you of doing this at all.
Or there's xeriscape landscaping. Xeriscape landscaping is succulents. Basically, we should be living like we live in Arizona. My sister lives in Arizona. Everyone has beautiful sand sculptures and rocks and beautiful cactus and succulents, and instead we should have food that works in our landscape and our geographic location basically and needs little water. There's actually food that is xeriscape as well, so that's kind of what Elise is saying.
So, California is not unique. It is unique, but there are water scarcity issues happening nationwide, worldwide. I mean, many of the wars or even small skirmishes, a lot of times have to do with access to rivers, controlling rivers and controlling water, and how important that is. 2/3 of the world's water is used for agriculture. That can probably, obviously, be more efficient, but at the same time, we have lots of people to feed on the planet. So, West Basin, along with other agencies like LADWP, are looking at ways of diversifying our water supplies so that we're not as dependent on those imported sources. So right now, for instance, West Basin, we import 2/3 of the water that serves our area. Now, my service area, we cover Malibu and Topanga. We're a non-contiguous service area. It's a little strange. We cover Malibu and Topanga, and then El Segundo, which is just under the LAX airport, down to the Palos Verdes Peninsula, inland to Carson, and then up through to Culver City. And it's about 900,000 people, and we serve the imported water from Metropolitan Water District. Our retail agencies, we have 8 retail agencies, so we then in turn sell to 8 customers who then in turn sell to those 800,000 people and businesses as well. We also produce 35 million gallons of recycled water per day. We take 10% of the City of LA's wastewater from the Hyperion wastewater treatment plant, and we transport that 5 miles to a treatment facility in El Segundo. I'll pass these around. I did this instead of PowerPoint because so this is our service area. You can see the pipes, the lines there, the purple pipes are our recycled water system. The second picture are 2 pictures of our wastewater treatment plant, where we treat that water that is first treated by LA City of LA. We treat it further for irrigation and industrial applications. 5 more minutes.
Quick question, how old is your system?
Our system, most of it was built in the 90s after the early 90s drought. So I'm going to get to the drought right now. So that tends to be devices, or high efficiency, we like to call them. Low flow has a bad connotation. It has the connotation of the toilets that you have to flush 2 and 3 times. But we have new higher efficiency devices, taking out part of your lawn, as we just said, and replacing it with low water, drought tolerant plants. So this year, as you've probably heard all over the news, is we're experiencing a historic drought in California. And our manager of planning and water resources did a presentation for the West Basin Water Association last week and talked about why this drought has a number of dubious distinctions. It is the 2013 was the driest calendar year on record. I think it's now the second driest year because we had a really good rain up north as well a couple weeks ago. But we're still very, very dry. The water that we get from Northern California, every year the state agencies allocate all of the purchasers of that water a percentage of what they normally would get. They say, okay, this year we're predicting that we're only going to give you 30% of your water, or 50% of the water that has been promised to you, which was like 50 years ago. This year, for the first time, state agencies said that there will be 0% of the water deliveries.
Would you like to comment on the Dust Bowl mitigation and 30 billion gallons of water that the state, they have to wet down the Owens Valley to keep the dust down? And from what I understand is they put almost as much water there as what the city of San Francisco uses.
I hadn't heard that figure, but I do know that they, over the last few years, have left more water up in the Owens Valley, and that is part of it. Well, I mean, I guess what I mean is that it's not being delivered to the city of LA because it is being mitigated, the dust mitigation.
It's being poured on the ground just to keep the dust.
That's true. I don't.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of issues like that, like the Delta smells is another issue, and the whole concept of extinction.
But we pay $90, people in Austin, we all pay $90 of our utility bill is for the water that's going to wet down so it doesn't get dusty.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that has to do, I'm not sure that, yeah, it probably has to do with industrial agriculture and monotropic and everything, right?
No, actually, I think that has to do with the air quality.
Yeah, I think there's air quality issue.
Yeah.
I think they're very complex problems, and sometimes the solutions another problem. And I'm not necessarily saying I don't know enough about
I was just curious, with your position.
Picture of it.
Well, I mean, you bring up a point that actually the state is
Let's see if I
looking at more so now than ever, is that there are co-equal goals of maintaining the environment as well as delivering water to agriculture in urban areas. And, you know, I think people definitely have an opinion that, some people have an opinion that it seems that we're placing the environment in a higher priority than people, but the situation with the Delta smelt, for instance, it's an indicator that system is not working. And when the whole system doesn't work, then nobody gets any benefits out of it. So it's that type of a situation.
And then together with them, so these are two relevant. One, what can you do if you've done pretty much it all? Like you've got a xeriscapes landscape, if you're going water, you've got the low flow zones. Are there any steps to creating a more resilient, robust reaction to our waters running out? And also, as a follow-up to that, you said that the West Basin is looking to bring it closer in. So what sources are you trying to use to generate local water for the city of LA?
So for the first question, I mean, if you've done all that, it's going to be hard to squeeze that tournament, right? Squeeze any more water out of that situation. If you're doing all of that, I think advocating to your neighbors and others that it works and you're not having to sacrifice.
So create a culture change.
Yeah, yeah. And then the second your body because it's so pure. So this is, we put that water in the ground. It creates, on that map, it creates an underwater dam, if you will, to keep the salt water from intruding into our groundwater basin. And that water does eventually make it into our drinking water supply. And it mixes with the groundwater. The state regulations say that if we treat it to a certain level and we test it, and everything gets tested on a very frequent basis, that water can be consumed. And there are a lot of people in the industry that are trying to move us in a direction where we will be looking at that. I know that the toilet to tap was a thing that came up, and many people are doubtful of that, but that's one local supply. And then ocean water desalination is a huge.
And do you have desalination plants?
We operate a demonstration facility, and we are doing research to look at three main issues. One is the intake, and doing that without jeopardizing ocean life, larvae, and fish. Another thing is the brine discharge. So when you take the water in and you separate out the good water, you have a salty discharge. We're looking at ways to put that back into the environment with as little impact as possible. And the third is the energy use, which is an issue. And we have these awesome devices. They're used throughout the world. They're a pressure transfer device that when you pressurize water and put it through a reverse osmosis unit, when it comes out the back end, that pressure is still in the water. And instead of pressurizing the new supply, the new stream that's coming in, this device actually transfers the pressure to the incoming stream and recaptures about 90% of that energy. So these are the types of things that we're all looking at. And I know that, like I said, West Basin is one example. LAWP has, I'm sure on their website, information about their projections and we all have to submit an urban water management plan every 5 years, every larger water agency in the state. And all of that information gets compiled by the Department of Water Resources and is public information. So.
Well, I would like to thank you, Liz. I think in 20 minutes, I want to give you some information, and she could give you so much more. And that's very sad. We are on schedule.
That's fine. I'm going to leave a couple of handouts on the table back there. One is it's a West Basin flyer, but it's the concept of the turf removal. The LA, I think the city of LA is paying up to, is it $2, $2.50 now, or $2 a square foot. We only offer $1. LA is offering $2, which we get a lot of people saying, do you offer the $2? No, that's LAWP. I'm going to leave this flyer, but all the the website information is the same. And then another handout if you want to look at other products that you can get rebates for. And then some free items that LAWP will send to you. If you call them, they'll send you a free faucet aerator, a free shower head. They're not the most attractive. They're low. I'll leave these on the table outside as well. Okay?
Thank you again, Phyllis Coleman, West Basin Municipal Water District. And again, if you have any questions, you can always see her after I'm done. She can stay a little longer, that'd be great. Now, this is my second month here at the school. And our community school has been very grateful to let me use the facility. I would like to take 2 minutes. I met a beautiful young lady, and she's been here. She served me. She's been next to me at this moment 3 times, and she's a great girl. And I would like to tell Erin Maxwell to come over here, please. She's in our community school, and this is our student body. And Erin, tell me a little bit about the school, about children, and it's a very appreciate what you did for us. Now, who's starving today? Let's talk about food and sprout. And we have a beautiful lady, Lisa Kienzi, and she will present you how to sprout.